Mario Saint-Supery is officially back in Spokane with 2 months until the season begins, and that could alter Gonzaga's plans in the backcourt.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Folks, football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today, and you can start planning your futures bets now. Well, Mark Few's oldest son took a job at a future Pac-12 rival. EA Sports is backing out of creating a standalone college basketball video game, and the Locked On NBA hosts ranked the top 100 players in the league, including 4 former Zags. We're going to break all of that down on today's show. But first, we are talking about the return of Mario Saint-Supery. We talked about this a little bit on Monday's episode. In the final segment, we're going to expand on it a little bit more here, as we now know officially, based on an Instagram post from Mario Saint-Supery, that he is back in Spokane. He has come home. I suppose it's more like he left home or left his national team to come out to Spokane, but we are very happy to see Mario back in Spokane with 2 months, almost exactly, until the official start of the 2025-26 college basketball season. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Mario's time at EuroBasket. We're also going to talk about what happens now. He's back. How many times will he get to practice with Gonzaga? What does it mean for his role this upcoming season? So again, as I stated on Monday's show, Spain, which is who Mario was playing for in the EuroBasket tournament, they were eliminated in their loss to Greece. 90-86 was the final score. They'd lost to Italy earlier in the week, and those 2 losses meant that the team that was the defending EuroBasket champions did not even make it out of the group phase and into the round of 16. There's been a ton of upsets in EuroBasket this year, and Spain losing before getting into the round of 16 was certainly among them. It was a really close game, and Mario played great in that final game for Spain against Giannis Antetokounmpo in Greece. Mario had 13 points, 2 assists, a board, and a steal in 17 minutes. He was second on the team in scoring. It was the most points he scored in a EuroBasket game. Just an excellent all-around performance from Mario, not only in this game, but really throughout the entire EuroBasket event. Again, said this before, but for those of you who have not been following, as a reminder, Mario is the youngest player to represent Spain at EuroBasket since 2009, when 18-year-old point guard Ricky Rubio was on the team. Mario's stats compared to Rubio's stats during his time with EuroBasket in 2009 are pretty similar. In fact, Mario put up better numbers across the board in less minutes per game than Rubio had when he was on this team as an 18-year-old. Obviously, the competition level is different and you can't compare straight across, but it's still an incredibly promising sign for Gonzaga that Saint-Supery was this effective, this productive as a 19-year-old going up against guys who were almost entirely 8 to 10 years older than him. And he comes out of it averaging 8.5 points. He averaged 2.8 assists compared to 1.2 turnovers per game, an elite assist to turnover ratio considering the circumstances. He also averaged 1.5 board shot, 33% from 3, 92% from the free throw line, in about 17 minutes per game. All around excellent stuff from Mario out at EuroBasket. Even more excitement building in Spokane for what this young man is going to be able to do in his first season with the Zags. But the question is, now what? What happens now that Mario is back? Now that he's posting on Instagram a picture of him in the locker room, we know he's here. We know he's going back to classes, but we also know that Gonzaga's not in the practice portion of the season just yet. There is a window in the summer where you are allowed to hold practices. That window has passed for Gonzaga. Then there is a window that opens up 42 days before the first game of the college basketball season. Now, that window will open up, I believe it's September 22nd is the day that Gonzaga will be officially allowed to practice. But you have this 42-day window to accrue 30 practices. You cannot go over 30. You have to be in that window. So a lot of teams do not start right away. So Gonzaga is going to start practicing somewhere between September 22nd, September 26th, somewhere in that range. Part of the reason that Mario's Gonzaga was not going to stop him from going to EuroBasket anyway. He obviously missed a little bit of class, but is back soon enough to not have that be a debilitating factor. But part of the thing is that even if Mario had been gone all the way until the championship, all the way until the last game at EuroBasket, which is scheduled right now for September 14th, he still would have been back in Spokane before they could officially start practicing. And I think that helps alleviate some of the stress that these college programs feel. I mean, Mario is not the only college player. Miro Little played for Finland. He's on UC Santa Barbara's roster this year. There are a handful of others that are playing college hoops this year as well. But it's great news that Mario's back in terms of his ability to get ready for college life. I mean, he's in a new country. He's with new teammates, new coaching staff, new everything, new experiences all across the board. And the last thing that you'd want is him trying to get ready for a basketball season, an incredibly competitive basketball season, while he's still getting his bearings on campus, while he's still navigating, where to go when he has questions about academics and, how to do certain things in the United States so you don't have to deal with in other countries. Like those kind of things matter, and they impact your ability to perform on the court. And they're not always talked about. It's not a conversation of, this is why this guy struggled because of so-and-so. You don't always know those things, but I can tell you with absolute confidence that any international student athlete, and I've worked with a whole bunch of them in my previous career, they want to have all of that stuff situated. They want to feel comfortable knowing, who do I talk to if I have a question about ordering textbooks, or who do I talk to, where can I get food that, is more comfortable for me? Like all these different things that matter in terms of these players having the quality of life that they need, but also just being able to not have to worry about those things and focusing solely on basketball. Mario being back now gives him a couple of weeks to get some of those immediate bearings kind of set before practices begin. And then he'll still have plenty of time after practices begin to be working on learning the offense and learning his role and learning what's expected of him at the collegiate level before the games actually begin. As I'm recording this 8 weeks from today, many of you are listening to this on a Tuesday. It's about a little less than 8 weeks from now when this season will officially get underway. The big question that I have about Mario's role for this upcoming season is a question we've posed a handful of times already on the show. Will the limited amount of time that Mario is spending with his teammates and coaches before the season begins, will that limit him to playing primarily off the ball this upcoming season? Because Mario can play both. Mark View said as much in an interview with Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review back in July. Coach View said Mario can play the one or the two. He's a pure point guard. He's a true point guard, but with his size, he can play off the ball. And at Baxi Manresa last year, which is the professional club Mario played for, he played primarily off the ball. So that is a role he is comfortable with, and it is a role that is much easier to play and fill in Gonzaga's system than the point guard role, where you're asked to navigate pick and rolls on an extremely regular basis. You're asked to make all sorts of reads in terms of getting the ball to the bigs, and this is a big who's going to roll to the rim, and this is a big who's going to pop out to the three-point line, and this is how to read this defense, and this is what this team's going to do. And again, he's going to have to learn all of that stuff, but learning it while playing a role, more similar to the role Nolan Hickman played last year, or the role that is projected to be filled by Adam Miller this year, it's a little bit easier. You don't have as many different things you need to evaluate and kind of know off the top of your head. I'm not saying Mario's not capable of learning those things. He absolutely is, but the timeline for him to be ready to fill that role has shrunk. It's a little longer now that he's already back home. He's not there for an additional week, which is what we kind of expected would be the case, but I still think that my guess for a depth chart for Gonzaga is that Mario is going to play a lot of minutes at the 2 and some minutes at the 1. I think the player who's going to have their playing time the most impacted by Mario at this point is not Braeden Smith, but rather Adam Miller. And I think that the primary backup point guard for this team might be Jalen Warley, the transfer from Virginia via Florida State, who has played a point guard role despite being 6'6", 6'7". And we talked about Jalen Warley kind of as a point guard option for Gonzaga on a recent show, so I don't want to relitigate that conversation. But ultimately, I think that Mario being back now is great timing for Gonzaga. We would have loved to see him compete a little bit more. He was getting an incredible experience getting to compete against guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo and Danilo Gallinari and other phenomenal NBA legends. But now that he's back, he gets to get his bearings straight academically. He gets to learn the ins and outs of, where to go when you need this or that or whatever, and getting to just know his teammates, getting to not just knowing them on the basketball court, although that's important, but knowing them off the court, knowing which of these teammates, have been here before, are new to the team, which teammates have a brother playing football at Eastern Washington 30 miles away, all that stuff that I think is just going to help Mario be a more impactful player for this team this year. So very excited to see now that Mario's back on campus. It's an exciting time for Gonzaga. He's one of the most highly anticipated freshmen that we've seen from this program in a couple of years. And I think that we're expecting him to play more than just a backup point guard role. But in fact, I'm at the point now where I think it's more likely that he's playing alongside Braeden Smith rather than purely playing behind him this upcoming season. Got some other fun updates for you. Mark Few's oldest son is now the director of player personnel for a Pac-12 rival. What does it mean for Coach Few and the Zags? We're going to get into that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, it is time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to your favorite non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without having to leave the course or chase down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary, excludes the Masters tournament, and ends on October 31st, 2025. Folks, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. One of the great things about FanDuel is that it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game a little more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. The Seahawks are plus 120 to beat Pittsburgh on Sunday, while my Detroit Lions are minus 225 to beat Chicago. I'm going to combine them into a parlay at plus 217, $20. If Detroit and Seattle wins, that's a $43 payout. And if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. Moving on from our conversation about the return of Mario Saint-Supery after his time at EuroBasket has come to an end, to instead talk about a surprising update for Gonzaga's Mark Few's oldest son, AJ Few, who was last year the head video coordinator for Gonzaga. He's also been a student manager. He's been a graduate assistant. He's been with this program for a long time, and he took a new job as the director of player personnel for Boise State's men's basketball team. He's also the director of player personnel and the director of the men's basketball Bronco Pro program for Boise State. This is an incredible accomplishment for AJ, an incredible step for him. Obviously, for those of you who are longtime listeners of the show or just familiar with the relationship between Gonzaga and Boise State is coached by Leon Rice. Leon Rice has been the head coach at Boise State since 2010, but prior to that, he spent 11 years as an assistant coach under Mark Few at Gonzaga. He's a long time friend of the Few family. The Fews, the Rices, and the Lloyds are all very, very close. There was a phenomenal article a couple of years ago written by Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review talking about how these families have been close to each other for a very, very long time, that the siblings, the kids all have a group chat and have texted each other for years. And it's a very cool kind of coaching tree and this family kind of atmosphere between these three programs. Of course, now all three are head coaches, with Tommy Lloyd having been now entering his fourth year at Arizona. And of course, Leon Rice has been at Boise State for a very long time now. And now you have AJ Few heading to Boise State to go work for Coach Rice. This was announced in a press conference or a press release by Boise State on Monday. There was a quote in the article from Leon Rice who said, quote, "We're fortunate to add a young man with an extensive and expansive basketball background and pedigree. His knowledge, experience, and acumen in all facets of the game will pay dividends and make us a better program both now and in the foreseeable future." And yeah, there's a unique wrinkle to this because AJ Few is very likely going to be helping Boise State game plan against Gonzaga when these two teams are both in the Pac-12 starting in the 26-27 season. Obviously, a lot can change between now and then, but assuming AJ is still in that director of player personnel role, or if he gets promoted, he would likely be promoted to an assistant coach role. That tends to be the order of operations. Either way, AJ is going to have a role in Leon Rice and Boise State attempting to beat Gonzaga likely at least twice in the 26-27 season. There's not really a lot else to say about it. It's already a kind of a unique situation. Mark Few and Leon Rice have been pretty steadfast in not playing each other. They have not played each other since Leon took over at Boise State 15 years ago. And when they've been asked about it, they have both said very directly, we don't want to play each other. Like, this is not an environment that we really want to be part of. I don't think it's because they're not competitive. I think it's the opposite. I think it's because they're very competitive, and maybe they just view it as being better for their relationship, for their friendship, if they're not playing each other. They do not have a choice after this upcoming season as they are joining the Pac-12. I doubt either side is too upset about that because of the circumstances with joining the conference. But yeah, this is a unique thing where not only will Mark Few compete against a longtime friend of his, but he's also going to compete effectively against his son. And his son is going to have the opportunity to game plan against his own father. It's just, it's not entirely unique in the sense that it's not never happened before or anything like that, but it's going to be an added wrinkle in what's already going to be a very fun kind of return of this series coming back when these two teams start playing each other after this upcoming season. The other thing to talk about here, a very different topic, switching gears, but you probably saw this if you're somebody who's plugged into the video game space here. This happened about middle of last week, but EA Sports has rescinded their offer or their proposal to create a standalone college basketball video game. So those of you hoping for, college basketball 2028 from EA Sports, it's unfortunately not going to happen. EA Sports had indicated they were planning to do this. They're going to release a standalone college basketball video game in 2028, but they were needing to get licensing from all Division I basketball teams. They wanted this. There was all or nothing. If we can have every single D1 team, we're doing it. If we can't, we don't want to do it. Well, what happened is that 2K, the NBA 2K franchise, the company that owns them, they began negotiating licensing deals with college basketball programs with the intention of creating a not standalone video game, but rather a format in their NBA 2K game called My Team, which already exists. It's already a mode on the game, and they wanted to have college basketball games that you could play from that mode. And so they've been negotiating with other programs and have succeeded in convincing a lot of programs to instead license with 2K rather than EA Sports. When EA Sports realized that they were not going to be able to have huge chunks of likely very, very good college basketball programs on their game, they decided to pull the plug. And I understand that. It's frustrating, but creating a college basketball video game that has, all 350 teams, except it's missing, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, all these big programs, was not going to be a very good game. Meanwhile, NBA 2K, they don't have any interest in creating a standalone game. They have revealed that they are planning to create this My Team mode, which will be a separate package that you have to buy. So you already buy NBA 2K. You have to buy this separate package to get the My Team mode. Then you can play with college basketball teams. And they've said they're going to have 100+ teams. So it's not going to be just a handful of teams, but it's also not going to be every team. Is Gonzaga going to be on there? Likely. If they've contacted and gotten licensing from 100+ teams, I'm very sure Gonzaga is among them. So if you wanted to get this NBA 2K My Team mode and play with Gonzaga, great. That sounds fun. I wish it was a standalone game. And I'm not a big video game guy. This doesn't impact my life as much as it impacts other people's, but it's another example of college basketball specifically kind of being cast aside here. EA Sports there was no doubt that they were going to get themselves every licensing for the college football games. And there's, since they're not doing FCS, they're only doing FBS from 135 teams. So it's obviously easier than the 350 D1 teams for college hoops. But at the end of the day, the people who are suffering here are not EA Sports, are not 2K. It's the fans who wanted a video game where they could play as UC Santa Barbara, where they could play as Wofford or Hampton or whomever, whatever small school that tickles your fancy. And that's no longer going to be an option. Maybe someday, maybe 2K will eventually decide to get the rights to every single team out there and create a standalone game. Maybe EA will try again. Maybe another company will emerge and make this happen. Who knows? But as somebody, again, I'm not a big video game guy, but I played college basketball 2010 game. The last version that existed of this, I did play it a lot and I loved it and I had a lot of fun and I would love to play this again. But unfortunately, it's not going to come to fruition, at least not on the timeline and from the company that we wanted to see it happen with. We're going to move on, close out the show. The Locked On NBA hosts voted on the top 100 players in the NBA heading into this upcoming season. A quartet of Zags made the list. We're going to break it down coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets to games, it can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. And that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals for so many great games. It's faster, it's cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. I alluded to Braeden Smith and his brother playing for Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington hosts Western Illinois on Saturday, December 20th in Cheney. Tickets in the first row of the end zone. You can get them for just $38 a piece at the Inferno. So folks, take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, folks, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. And we're closing out the show, continuing or moving on to our conversation here about my colleagues at Locked On, the NBA hosts. There's one host for all of the NBA teams. They all collectively voted to rank the top 100 players in the league heading into the 2025-26 season. The composite top 100 was revealed on social media on Monday, and I thought it might be fun to take a look at where our Gonzaga players ended up on this list. And I compared it to since we were talking about 2K earlier, why not stick with that and continue the conversation about 2K, because 2K also released their top 100 players in like mid-August, so about 3 weeks ago. And it was kind of fun to compare where these four, because it's the same four Gonzaga players, spoiler alert, same four guys were on the top 100 for 2K and on the top 100 for the Locked On list. And a handful of them ended up in very similar spots, but there were some discrepancies, and I think it's kind of fun to take a look at how that ended up. So the four players are Andrew Nembhard, Jalen Suggs, Domantas Sabonis, and Chet Holmgren. We're going to go through them here one by one. We'll start with Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard, the widest range between where he was on Locked On's list and the 2K top 100. 2K had him barely on the list. He was 95th with an 81 overall ranking from 2K. Meanwhile, the Locked On hosts had Andrew at 71st among the top 100 players in the NBA. Nembhard averaged 10 points, 5 assists last year, started 65 games for the Pacers. And I think that this explanation is actually pretty simple. From a narrative perspective, humans voting on a player, it's easier to elevate Andrew Nembhard's game because of what he did in the playoffs for this Indiana team last year. Andrew was outstanding. He was one of the best defensive players in all of the NBA last year. He won the Eastern Conference Defensive Player of the Month in January, and he locked dudes down, locked down Jalen Brunson, locked down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And it's not like Andrew his defense is great, but his defense doesn't show up in ways that would be easy to rank in a video game. Let's put it that way. Like, he doesn't generate a ton of steals, so you're not going to give him like a 90 rating in steals. Like his defense is more pesky. He's really good at moving his body and kind of getting guys off balance, doing things that, again, aren't really going to show up in an obvious way in a ranking system. So I'm glad that the hosts, my colleagues at Locked On, recognize Nembhard's value. I do believe he's one of the 75 best players in the NBA right now. I don't think that 95th was like a slap in the face disrespectful from NBA 2K. I think that's fine, but I'm glad to see that the hosts here have him even higher, up at 71 overall. Jalen Suggs is next up. He was 67th on the Locked On Top 100 and 77th according to NBA 2K. Last year, Suggs averaged a career high 16.2 points, 4 rebounds, and 1.5 steals. He also averaged just under 4 assists per game. Problem, Suggs only played 35 games last year. Injuries have absolutely ravaged Jalen at the NBA level. He has really struggled to stay healthy. He's really only played one season where he was healthy for the majority of the campaign. And he was great that year. He finished 10th in NBA Defensive Player of the Year voting. He was an All-NBA defensive second teamer, was just tremendous that year. And this past year, like I said, he was putting up career numbers pretty much across the board. 16 points over a full season would have far and away been the best numbers of his career. But unfortunately, injuries once again limited him to less than half of a full season. We will see if Jalen can stay healthy for Orlando this upcoming year with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. This is a team that's built to really compete. And Suggs as the third or fourth option for this team and a great defensive player could really make some noise in an Eastern Conference that's without Jason Tatum, that's without Tyrese Halliburton. I think Orlando could be a real player as long as Suggs stays healthy. Either way, both 2K and Locked On had him around the same spots. Happy to see him a little bit higher in Locked On's rankings at 67th going into this upcoming season. Next up are the two bigs, Domantas Sabonis and Chet Holmgren, and very, very, very similar rankings for both of these guys. Sabonis, 32nd, according to the Locked On NBA rankings. Meanwhile, he was 33rd at 2K. And for Chet, it's the same difference. Holmgren was 30th by Locked On NBA and 31st by NBA 2K. So these guys are both one spot away from their 2K rankings and just 2 spots away from each other. We'll start with Sabonis. Sabonis at 32, averaged 19 points, 14 boards, and 6 assists last year. He led the NBA in rebounds per game for a third straight season. He also shot 42% from 3. It was a remarkable year for Sabonis. His assists were down a little bit. He'd been averaging like 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. So last year was a quote-unquote down year because he only averaged 19, 14, and 6 assists. Can't really blame him. The fact that his teammates were just pretty darn awful last year was a big part of it. That Sacramento team was not good. They moved on from De'Aaron Fox. They brought in guys like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Jonas Valanciunas, and it just was not a roster that worked very well together through no fault of Sabonis' own. He was a dynamic offensive player. He is still limited defensively, but I think 32 is fine. I think I'd probably have him a little higher. I will also admit to being a bit biased there. I do know that he is limited in what he can do defensively, and the fact that he has not had playoff success, I think, is being held against him a little bit unfairly. Yes, Sabonis is a challenge in the playoffs because of that defense, but he is such a dynamic offensive player and elite rebounder. And I think on the right roster, he would be much, much higher in these rankings, but he's asked to do more than I think he should be asked to do with Sacramento. Chet comes in at number 30 overall, 31st, again, according to 2K. Last year, Chet averaged 15 points, 8 boards, 2.2 blocks in 32 regular season games. Like Jalen, he has been limited by injuries. He missed his entire rookie season before playing all 82 games last year, the previous year, and then this past season, he played 32 games before missing the rest, or before he missed a huge chunk early in the season and came back, played some games, and then played throughout the playoffs and was an absolute monster. In the series against Jaren Jackson Jr., Rudy Gobert, and Nikola Jokic, Chet was one of, if not the best players on this Oklahoma City team, getting them all the way to the championship against Indiana and then through 7 games, winning an NBA Finals. He is now an NBA champion and has been a incredible player throughout that postseason run. He's just 23 years old and at 30th in this list. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a long, long time from now that Chet is ever outside of the top 30 again on these top rankings, because he is a phenomenal, phenomenal player and is only getting better. Were there other Zags that got snubbed? Nobody obvious comes to mind. 95 through 100 on this list, according to Locked On hosts, were RJ Barrett, Peyton Pritchard, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons, and Toumani Camara. For what it's worth, I, as a Blazers fan, think Toumani Camara is well underranked on this list. He was 82nd. at 2K, so there's a pretty big discrepancy there. But out of that group of 6 players, there's no other Zags that I think obviously belong in front of any of them. I think the biggest, for lack of a better word, snub is probably Rui Hachimura, but I don't think he like necessarily needs a spot on this list. If it was a top 125, Rui should be on the list. If it's a top 125, I think you could make an argument for 3 other Gonzaga players, Rui, as well as Corey Kispert, as well as potentially Brandon Clark. Could even make an argument for Kelly Olynyk, although I think that is probably more like 150 for where you'd have Kelly coming into the list. But there's a lot of good Gonzaga players in the NBA these days. The fact that 4 of the top 100 players in the league consensus basically are from Gonzaga is already an incredible accomplishment. The fact that there's 3 or 4 other guys that could compete for spots in that conversation is tremendous. It's a huge testament to what Mark Few has built for this Gonzaga program over the last decade or so. And we're going to continue to see that grow as players like Julian Strother get better, as players like Drew Timme get better, and then as players like Ryan Nembhard enter the league, and potentially players like Mario and other players at Gonzaga currently start entering the league in the next couple of years. It's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Folks, thank you so much for making this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Special shout out to those everyday listeners as well. We'll be back later this week. We've got some more recruiting updates for you, keep you up to date on what's going on with Gonzaga as they get ready to start practices here very soon as well. Thanks again, folks, for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.